Good evening, I'm Stacey Russell and welcome to the People's Business. One quarter of this year has passed with exhilarating celebrations of We Gatherin 2025 in St. Lucie, St. Peter and St. Thomas. Now we're into the second quarter with St. Joseph kicking off its month of activities this weekend. We Gatherin is a vision of Prime Minister Mia Motley and her government for Barbadians at home and abroad to celebrate the uniqueness of their parishes this entire year, to also inspire national and personal pride and pay homage to nation builders among other goals. After the experiences in 3 parishes, this is an opportune time to consider how We Gatherin 2025 is impacting Barbadian communities and the economy. Tonight, we have gathered 3 guests for this discussion. The Honorable Senator Dr. Shantal Munro-Knight, Minister in the Prime Minister's Office with responsibility for culture. Senator John King, Director of the 2025 We Gatherin Secretariat. And Miss Leah Roach, Operations Manager at Harrison's Cave Eco-Adventure Park, the island's premier attraction. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But just before we get into the meat of things, we'll take a short break and come right back with the People's Business. Welcome back to the People's Business. I'm going to dive straight in. I'm actually going to start with Senator John King because he is the director of the Secretariat overseeing We Gatherin 2025. What would you say so far? Is it living up to expectations?
I would say that it is living up and going beyond expectations. People have been responding tremendously from across the island, not only just coming to the activities, but picking up the telephone, calling to make suggestions as to things that they would like to see, asking how can I get involved. I can't wait for it to get to my parish so that we can do this and that. And for me, that is a signal that Barbadians are fully supportive of the initiative. They understand what we're trying to achieve, and everyone has a stake in ensuring that We Gatherin is a monumental success, and I think we're well on our way to achieving that particular goal.
Besides those calls and inquiries from different quarters, what other measures have the Secretariat put in place to gauge the success of We Gatherin so far?
So at this point in time, there's a monitoring and evaluation that is going on as the months go by. We're gathering that information. At the end of it all, we'll be able to present to the entire nation a full booklet, or however we do it, digitally or however, so people can see. We're measuring, okay, what's the impact economically? So you have a lot of vendors, people who are benefiting from what's going on. Numbers of persons who are actually coming out and attending it. You could even break it down into looking at the age ranges and different things, so you can see the engagement that is happening with that. When you look at what is happening with the private sector, how many private sector persons have gotten involved, what has the impact been on their own businesses, and I'm sure we'll hear a bit more about that in a more fulsome way as we go through the conversation. But these are just a few of the things that you're going to be measuring. And then we have our other partners who are getting involved. So you have a literacy program, you have the training initiative. There's so many other things that are coming in. And every day I receive calls from animals rights persons who want to know how can we get involved, how do we put certain information out there and use regathering as a platform to get our messages out there. You have groups who deal specifically with issues that affect men who have come to us and who are now in the process of being able to go into the communities and set up through the parish organizing committees meetings where men can get to talk and men can get to share. So it is all of that that is happening at the same time. We'll be able to measure the impact of those things once we get the information back. So by the end of it all, like I said before, there'll be something available. The Barbadians can see these are the outcomes, these are the things that have happened. And then there's simple things. I'll give you a classic example. When we went to St. Lucie, Archers Bay used to be a place where Barbadians from all walks of life can remember going to it, picnics, church, gatherings, whatever it was. It was essential to, let's say, the life of people in Barbados. This would have been a place that for a long time, nothing was happening there. Out of regathering, people were able to go back into that space. And if you were privy to the comments that came from persons who were saying, I remember this as a child, getting in the bus and coming to Archers Bay for the picnics. I remember all the different smells and the different things that people were bringing to this picnic spot, and I missed it. But people actually who were there were like reminiscing on this, and it's back into operation again. And hopefully a lot of our persons who put on events and different things will use that space going forward. So that's just a small idea of the kind of legacy things that are happening as we go through these months.
Senator, Dr. the Honorable Shantal Munro-Knight, from your point of view, how is Gatherin going? I know that you are responsible for culture, working within the office of the Prime Minister. How do you see Barbados's culture emerging in the various parishes so far?
That's one of the central planks for us of Regathering, right? That culture, as you said, that cultural identity being reinforced within the Barbadian society, the emphasis on building national identity. But it's an important part of it, right? So I know that we want to have a conversation which is around what is the economic impact, which is extremely important. But there is real substance to making sure that we forge a nation who understands itself. And we're using Regathering to do that in a very serious way. So if people really look at what are the constituent elements of Regathering, Senator King talked about the Archers Bay experience, but we've had that replicated in so many other different types of activity. One of the core activities for Regathering is genealogy workshops. Mm-hmm. Again, what does that mean? What's a genealogy workshop? It's where Barbadians can come and be able to trace their records, trace their family roots, right? Understand where they have come from in terms of that family history, and then get better acquainted with what that has meant for them. And we see people coming out and flocking to those genealogy workshops, suggesting to all of us that there is a sense in which Barbadians right now are interested in reconnecting with that history. And that is something that we are doing in the context of Regathering, again, because the exercise is fundamentally about that nation building aspect as well. We're using Regathering as well. Senator King talked about entrepreneurship, right? But it's entrepreneurship coming from communities. And very often as well, the expression of that entrepreneurship also as well reinforces that notion of cultural identity. It's in what is created. It's in how it's expressed. In St. Thomas, there were so many kind of practical workshops taking place, letting people learn how to make the old-time straw hats. Okay. People had demonstrations about how to sculpt and to create things. I was down there and I saw some young men who created these wonderful planters, handmade planters to put the plants in, to decorate inside. So it's all those kinds of elements, all those kinds of reconnecting with ourselves. We see families coming out, entire generations. So when you look at Regathering, not just one demographic, but again, children, and they're coming up with their parents and friends, because Regathering is providing them with that opportunity. Again, one, a safe space where they feel they can come out again to be able to experience some of the things that perhaps we sometimes feel has been lost. Again, and Regathering is allowing us to be able to bring those back and cement them as well.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for those perspectives. Ms. Leah Roach, you are the operations manager at Harrison's Cave. Now, Harrison's Cave is so popular. You've recently added Harrison's Cave Eco Adventure Park to the title because since the new management took over, you've added various attractions. And one of the reasons we'd like to hear from you tonight is to get your insights, because this is perhaps the island's premier tourist attraction. What are you seeing on the ground when it comes to Gatherin? How is that impacting how people are coming through to Harrison's Cave?
Well, thank you and good evening. Thank you for having me here. Well, for us at Harrison's Cave Eco Adventure Park, it's managed by Chukka Caribbean Adventures Barbados Limited, and we have seen quite an influx of persons, especially when it came to the St. Thomas aspect of the Regathering. We were actually the Heritage Village location, so we had all of the notifications on the boards about caves and gullies and like St. Thomas Parish Church and all of the unique things about St. Thomas, Sharon Moravian Church. We even had our St. Thomas bus stop and the benches and a Look Mahay, a Look Mahay selfie board, and that helped. So there was so much engagement that happened between the guests, and we had team members come from BTMI who were stationed there daily, and they would have engaged the guests. We had so many guests who were interested in what's going on, trying to find out what's Regathering all about. So it wasn't only a target to Barbadians, but I found that the response too from the international guests who were coming through and also the CARICOM guests who were coming through, they were very interested in what's going on, how could they find out more. So we provided them with the little booklets on St. Thomas and what's going on with Regathering, the different activities that were going on throughout the community throughout that month. And we had some really great responses. And it goes also, I guess, when you guys get to see the Barbados map that has all of the names and the inscripted from the stickers, you will see quite a bit came from Harrison's Cave with persons signing their names, and they were just, everybody was so engaged. They were very, very engaged and intrigued by what was going on.
So I'm glad that you mentioned local guests, CARICOM guests, international guests,
Yes.
because I'm curious to know who were coming along. Were they mostly the locals, mostly Barbadians in the diaspora? Were they mainly CARICOM guests, international guests? What have you been seeing in relation to Regathering?
Well, for us, it varied according to the day. So the day that there was the Project House activity, which was hosted on the 29th, we would have seen the influx of Barbadians coming over because we had our special on for the day, and that was where persons were able to enjoy Welsh Mahal Gully, Flower Forest, and Harrison's Cave. They had the morning hike as well, so persons were able to participate in some of everything. Hamilton Pottery, he was doing his pottery over by the Project House as well. So for that particular day, we saw a huge influx of Barbadian guests coming through, all ages, all stages and ages coming through to do the cave tour. Persons were saying, well, you know, we haven't been to this place in so long, and look at how it has been enhanced, because we haven't done anything intrusive with the location. We've added, you know, nice enhancements that are sustainable with the environment and everything. We haven't done anything with the cave itself. We've just made sure that our tours are always on par with everything, you know, we stay on top of our game.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a little more about how the Welshman Hall Gully community has been impacted by what has been going on at the cave through We Gatherin and perhaps even the wider communities outside of Welchman Hall Gully? What insights can you provide on that?
Well, I can speak from Harrison's Cave's perspective. We had the Rum Tales, which was in partnership with Mount Gay, and that was an opportunity for persons to come out. They had a free tour, completely free, of the cave itself, and then afterwards they had the Mount Gay rum tasting experience with some of the ambassadors from Mount Gay themselves. So it was an opportunity. We saw persons actually come out, they booked with us because you had to provide your booking information. We saw persons interested. They were, as soon as it came out, persons began calling and emailing and inquiring. The phones were continuously going off, you know. They were very interested. So we had a very high response to the Rum Tales activity. But generally, we have a good response and rapport with our community because Chukka is very big on community. So we do have our Chukka Foundation where we do different activities throughout the year. And it just so happens that we have the Gatherin as well.
Okay.
So it worked.
Excellent. Well, we're going to take a break here now and come right back with the People's Business. And welcome back to the People's Business. I'm Stacey Russell, and with me tonight are Senator John King, Miss Leah Roach. She is from Harrison's Cave Eco Adventure Park. You see, you guys are now under new management, and I have to keep remembering that sometimes we call you Chukka, sometimes we say just Harrison's Cave. And we also have Senator the Honorable Dr. Shantal Munro-Knight, and tonight we're discussing the impact of We Gatherin on Barbadian communities and the economy. Now, Senator John King, what are you seeing so far as the director of the We Gatherin Secretariat concerning how communities are benefiting business-wise from We Gatherin 2025?
So in all three parishes that we've done so far, we're privileged to have the opportunity to go to what we call the corner shops and the little, watering holes and different things like that. People have been saying all the time they are so grateful for what is happening because they're seeing an uptake in business, especially with other people coming from across the island and coming into the parishes. So like in St. Lucie, for instance, when they had what they call their Pickle Saturdays, you had people coming from all across the island and going into St. Lucie just to be involved in that initiative. And so when we did our motorcade that passed through there at the beginning of the year, the shop where we stopped for the last stop, the gentleman there, he was just overjoyed. He was saying to me, Mr. King, this has been fantastic for us because coming out of COVID, you could imagine the stress that we would have been under. And we're talking about small and micro businesses that, you know, would have been impacted heavily by COVID and now trying to catch themselves again. And so this is an injection into those small businesses that is well needed at this particular point in time. Some of the vendors who've been at a number of the different events, so the thing, they always say by the time it starts, they're almost sold out. So you can always get that job, even in a simple thing like a movie night. You know, we were there and there were persons just had popcorn and small little things like that. But before the night was over, they were sold out. They were so happy. So the impact is being felt amongst those particular groupings in a major way, and they're very appreciative of what is happening. And so what does that mean? It means that if they are doing well, it means that suppliers further up the chain are doing well because they have to get things to do. Then they're going to employ people to help them, to serve, to do all the other things that they're doing. So there's that ripple effect that is happening, and I expect it to continue as we move from parish to parish. But again, once you have the initiatives such as what we've seen so far from these parish organizing committees who are doing things specifically geared to giving those small and micro businesses the opportunity to show what they do, make some sales, and in some cases just expose themselves to the general public. But it's not just them. You know, if you think about persons who do simple things like T-shirts and other things like that, through the parish organizing committees, again, you're in your parish, you can get the opportunity to do Gatherin T-shirts. You know, if you're a micro or small business, these are the kind of impacts that are happening out there, and you're going to see as the months go down that those persons who are really the real go-getters and the entrepreneurs are going to take advantage of those opportunities.
Okay, thank you. And at this point, I want to encourage you viewers to call us if you have any comments, if you have any questions. The numbers are on the screen for you to call. It's 228-5562 or 228-5563. We would love to hear from you. Senator Shantal Munro-Knight, now we're talking about culture. We're talking about the creative arts. What has Gatherin been doing for that community from an entrepreneurship perspective? It's one thing to be creative and to be able to bring communities together by providing entertainment and showcasing craft and so forth. But how about making money from all of this? What has it done for them?
Thank you so much for that question. I just step back a little bit. I just wanted to comment on the first question you would ask Senator King about, you know, how we were actually practically measuring the impact, right, of Gatherin on the whole of society. So, as Senator King said, the government is 100% in this process about accountability, right, to people, and as well the larger impact of Gatherin. So we have put out a call for specialists in monitoring evaluation, as was indicated, but we can also share some figures with you right now, even though they're preliminary, right? So particularly for the marquee events, we can already say to you, and with just only three parishes having been completed, that we've engaged over 66 entrepreneurs, and that's directly just from the marquee events only. And the marquee events are the big kind of signal events that are held in each parish. And those 66 entrepreneurs, coming to your question now, span different areas as well. So, of course, when you talk about the cultural sector, a big section of the marquee events, again, are also about the entertainment that happens, the performers, etc. But we don't just hire performers. It's very deliberate, right? So you would see that in the cast that makes up those performers, that they're very local, very community-based, because it allows for exposure for people who normally would not get a big stage to perform. So it's a deliberate attempt to make sure, yes, that we give work, but also as well give exposure. Because if we look at it only in the now, we don't also then understand the potential ripple impacts of somebody who's now being discovered. In St. Thomas, we had the two brothers that played beautifully on the saxophonist, right? And everybody, I went to an event, I think just this weekend, and people were commenting and talking about where did these young people come from, because they hadn't seen them before. So it's also about the possibilities for exposure as well, right? And so as we monitor that impact, it means that later on, not only again in the now, we'd have to also measure then over a period of time, a year, go back to some of those same creatives, those same performers, and ask them if they also as well were able to get additional business from the regathering process. I also want to say to you, and again, just talking just preliminary about some of the figures, and we were talking about people engaging. Again, just for the marquee and the major events, we've seen over, I think it is just under 30,000, something like 29,000 Barbadians attending, again, those premier signal events. Three, all right? 3 parishes only gone. And so Barbadians are coming out. And are coming out in their numbers and are engaging as well. We also see as well, I talked about the small businesses that we have and the numbers as well that are coming out. But then as well, when you talk about where the visitors are coming from, what we are doing with the Ministry of Tourism, BTMI in particular, is that we've added a question on the incoming ED form for passengers to ask them, if they're coming back for regathering. That means we will then have a pinpoint in time at which we're able to actually measure those persons that are coming. I can tell you already, again, we talk about culture, is that there's planned for a group, I think, of 30 entertainers that will be coming here to Barbados Acquire in June from the Carolinas to be able to participate. We also have family groups that would normally come back that, again, are planning to come back in the month that their parish or their matriarch or patriarch, where the family home would have been, planning to come back around that time to tie their family celebrations again around regathering. So there are multiple triple impacts.
Well, we'll just stick a pin there and take a call from someone who is on the line. Good evening, caller.
Yes, hi, great evening. How are you doing? Yes, hi, great evening. A couple of questions for the panel, please. My first question is, based on the aspect of how regathering is the perfect, and thank the production team for taking my call, regathering being the perfect change to what Barbados is currently experiencing at this time with the crime surge, and how regathering is going to make a significant impact on the economy, the religious and social aspect of society. What are you doing during the summer, though, for children who will be so engaged from not only Barbados, the region, and the world, but throughout the aspect of their home now as well, by the way? What are you doing for the children? Because you would know that most of the gathering so far, and it's fantastic, has been done for the adults. But what are you doing for the children? And my final question is, based on regathering and the aspect and import and input of being really a platform, a stage for the greatest level up that Barbados has ever experienced in terms of its greatest diversification of the economy and tourism, what are your plans for a regathering of the stage where you allow for people to see your plans after the next election, after the next regathering? What are you doing to make the next one even better?
Well, thank you for that question. Who's going to take it?
Who's going to
answer?
I can start. So what are we doing for children? I think there's an assumption that we aren't doing anything for children now, which is not the case. Regathering is deliberately, Senator King can add more, deliberately engaging the schools. So already, Senator King, I believe, if I'm correct, we've done direct engagement with at least 15 schools already, and expanding that more in various ways to make sure that the school children are engaged over the summer. And I think it would be a little bit unfair to say that regathering is the only vehicle by which children will be engaged, right, in terms of the process. We have to be reminded that within the Division of Youth, there are going to be a whole set of summer camps as well. And of course, as part of the regathering effort, we will then be involved and engaged as well. I also want to remind as well, again, because I'm on the Division of Culture, we also be having Carfesta. That would happen at the end of August. So there will be multiple activities, but we are paying special attention. A number of our partners, for instance, are doing several initiatives within schools as well. We'd have a private sector partner that will be coming in to work with us to do a breakfast program as well within the schools. We have sustainability things that are happening within the schools. The other question about, what are we going to do to make sure that the next one, Senator King, I'll leave that for you. That's really, really, really far-reaching as well. I think, as you said, committed to accountability, committed to continually measuring. And by doing so, then we will take the lessons learned forward as much as possible.
I think going forward, once this process is finished and that evaluation is completed, it puts us in a place where we can see, okay, what did we do extremely well? What were the big things that came out of it? Where did we go wrong? What are the things that we need to fix? But one of the things that I want people not to lose sight of is that in working with the parish organizing committees, what we're doing, we are building out capacity within the parishes for persons to do things like learn how to put on events, learn how to deal with staging and lighting and all the things that are associated with that. But you're also giving people the opportunity to see entrepreneurs working, to interface with them, to also express to others, well, you know what, I see you're making something out of bamboo and whatever. How can I get involved in that sort of thing? So you have all of these things happening at the same time, which we're hoping that in years to come, let's say the marquee events in particular, that the parish organizing committees, although they might not be named that at that time, but that people within the parishes may do it themselves because they have gotten the skills or they've been, encouraged by what they saw. And so therefore you have a 52-week calendar that is now built out parish by parish by parish, and all of the different skills that are needed to put on events, to attract people, getting people to stimulate them to think, what is it peculiar in your parish? Like, you know what? It's not just the cave here, but it could be Cove's Cave somewhere else, or it could be a cave somewhere in St. John or St. Philip or somewhere that people decide, well, you know what? We holding something around our cave, and it becomes an international thing, just as Oystins has grown from the ground organically with people just doing what they do to an international thing now where you have people around the world wanting to replicate that. So this is what Regathering is doing in the communities, building capacity.
The possibilities are endless.
Yes.
And on that note, we're going to our next break. And welcome back to the People's Business. I'm going straight to Miss Leah Roach. When you look at what was happening at Harrison's Cave last year and what's happening now, do you see numbers increasing?
Well, for us, last year was Cricket World Cup.
Okay.
So the numbers were up there, and the numbers have maintained the same. So we are quite pleased at that, and it's also what we dub as the winter season still. So we do have the influx of guests still coming through during that time. So our numbers, what I've seen though, is the differentiation in the percentages. So say last year, if our numbers were between 10 to 15% locals, it has increased. So you get like a bump of about 5 to 8% more locals coming through. When we tally up our numbers for the month of March, especially, seeing that was the month for our St. Thomas Regathering.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have a caller on the line. Caller, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, I commend initiative. Thank you. Time. I've never anticipated people will be scattering.
I'm sorry we lost that caller. And it was so important to get from you how Harrison's Cape is doing as the island's premier destination in terms of an attraction when people come, or where locals are choosing to go during this time. Because obviously tourism is our bread and butter business. So, you know, if more people are coming, more locals are coming to the attraction, it's an indication of how we're doing with feeding ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay. And we've heard, I don't know which one of you want to take this one, but we've heard that corporate Barbados has pledged close to $5 million to the We Gatherin initiative. Is that in cash or in services, and how is that being distributed amongst the various parishes?
Senator, you want to take this 5 minutes?
Yeah.
I'm not so sure where that figure came from.
Yeah, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure where that figure came from.
But is there a figure?
There is a.
So what is your figure?
There is a figure, but
what is your figure?
I will not disclose figures because you're still in the delicate stages with potential partners and stuff like that, and I don't want to be able to say, well, we're at this particular point in time, or but what I will say is that it has been very good, and I want to take this opportunity to encourage more of our businesses to get involved. The reason being that the market that we have, though it's a small market, is a very loyal market, and so most of our partners see this as their way of being, you know, good corporate entities and giving back, in a sense, to the communities that serve them so well. And we are doing extremely well in terms of where we are. Like you said, first quarter down, we're very, 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 very close to $500,000 at that particular point in time.
$500,000 in relation to what?
In relation to monies that we've gotten in kind and in actual cash also to put into the communities to help with the programs, you know. So we're really, really thankful for that. But again, how much is too much and how much is too little? The real thing is, because we gathering, it's all about us as a society. Every single sector is invited to be a part of it. And as was mentioned earlier, when you think about, for instance, the ability for us to have ramps done in each parish to help someone with a disability, these sorts of initiatives that are coming out of it. And oftentimes it is not us who are saying, you know, this is what we want you to do. Persons are coming to us and saying, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to get involved in. How can you facilitate that? And so we're doing extremely well, and we understand the limitations. The world is in a strange place right now, so we understand the limitations, but we're very thankful for what we've gotten so far, and I'm very confident that what was the figure you called earlier? 5 million? I am confident that we will get 5 million before the end of the year, but we're not quite there yet.
Okay. Would that be enough to cover what is required to bring people together in the communities in Gatherin?
So I want to just add to what Senator King said, right, and the last comment about, what is enough. So, and just to say, we've been very deliberate, though, right, Senator King, just in terms of how we work with our private sector partners. So the work with the private sector partners is about the question that you asked first, right? How are communities benefiting? And that is where the value is for us. That's where the legacy is for us, right? In terms of the private sector partnerships that we are working with. We have a private sector partnership in which we are undertaking recycling in schools. And encouraging children, somebody talked about the youth and how we're involving, to be able to understand the value of recycling, right? And what to do with your plastic bottles and what happens to the environment. That's legacy that's happening, right? That's support that's coming from the private sector. The fact that we have private sector partnerships that are going to allow us to repair murals that are throughout communities as well is also legacy. And we can monetize that, but how do we monetize that now, but also as well in the next 10, 15 years, when again generations are interacting with that. The fact that we will repair road tennis courts as well. I talked about the partnership that would work with us to provide breakfast for school children as well. Is that enough, right? Again, that deals with so many different things, engaging people, engaging children to have nutritious meals as well, because they're providing healthy meals, making sure that they are full and can engage as well. So the partnerships that we have are really about making sure that we are able to bridge that gap with a number of the high-level social and environmental things that are happening around sustainability and direct concerns within communities as well. And that is really the value for us. So even as we talk about the $500,000 that we have attracted thus far, and more partners continue to come in every single day, right, who want as well to be involved in Gatherin. Some, yes, come in with cash, but most come in with us to be able to partner. We will offer, through another partnership, scholarships that for young people, again, going into university again. And then again, how do you kind of measure that? Because that's one in that moment, but that is then allowing those young people to be able to go to university, study, have their full, sometimes all the things that we say that university is free, but there's always attendant cost to it, and then that's futures that are being impacted. So the partnerships are creating legacy elements that are going to have impact for the future.
Ms. Leah Roach, what lessons have you learned so far from this Gatherin experience at Harrison's Cave?
Well, for us at the cave, lessons learned. Well, like the marquee event that we would have been part of, it gave us the opportunity to see more of what is done in the community. So, like the guy who does the coconut hats. So we like to engage community because, as I mentioned, like with the Chaka Foundation, Chaka is big on community and community efforts. So the guy with the coconut hats, that's a business opportunity for him there, where we can engage him then to be able to come to Harrison's Cave. We have kiosks available for like rental space. If you wanted to have that like feature him a particular month or a particular quarter of the year, then we could do that. It gives us the opportunity also to work with Hamilton Pottery, which is just around the corner, and he can decide, okay, well, I'm going to come do a demo by Harrison's Cave Eco Adventure Park, or we can collaborate and do something where you bring your guests up to Hamilton's Pottery. So it gives the, for us, that was kind of one of our lessons, I guess, if you want to dub it that way, where we can actually collaborate and work with members within the community who are doing well for themselves as entrepreneurs. Yeah,
that's excellent.
Yes.
And those young men that you've just spoken about,
yes, the saxophonists as well.
They might be looking at this program. They're
it's true, and the entertainment.
They're going to be knocking on your doors.
The door, of course, of course.
We're going to a break, and we're coming right back with the People's Business. Welcome back to the People's Business. We're going to go straight to a caller who is on the line. Good evening, caller. Go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Wanted to make the point that the initiative, from my vantage, has been timely in terms of the sense to which persons are, yes, not just coming back to Barbados, but persons are considering returning to Barbados to live and returning home. So that's a good thing, given the state of affairs, particularly in North America at this time. But I also wanted to posit that I noted that Dr. Munro-Knight spoke of a choir coming from North Carolina in June, and it would be nice to have a parish choir competition, at some point, maybe to culminate. I think that would generate significant interest among choirs by design are gathering entities anyway. So maybe that's something that can be considered in the next rotation.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, caller. Well, one of the last callers was already talking about the next one.
Yeah, that's the next level of excitement.
Before we get to the next one, what are your prospects for the rest of the year? Senator
All right,
King?
so the competition is on. Let me tell you that right away. Each parish is gearing up to outdo the other one. So as this baton is passed from parish to parish, you're beginning to see more and more elaborate ideas coming out, and some of the things might not be able to be executed in this time, but as was mentioned earlier, the Ideas Forum is there for persons to use that ability to speak, the things that they're thinking that they would like to see happen in Barbados. So each parish gets the opportunity to show off what is uniquely theirs and to establish things within the parish that previously weren't there. So I am looking forward to just being able, at the end of it all, as we mentioned earlier, to really look back and see from whence we came when we started as to where we are at the end. But like I said, the competition is on, and that once there's competition, you expect that there are going to be lots of, people trying to outdo each other, looking at what has happened before and say, okay, we can build on this, we can learn from this, we can use some of the things that we saw in the other parishes, or we could even collaborate. And one of the other things that is happening, which is really, again, very interesting, someone said to me, when I went to St. Lucie, one of the things I was having difficulty with is finding somebody who could do, and I won't say what it was, but could do this particular job. And once they were up there at Archers Bay, they had the opportunity just to mention it to someone. And then, as the old people were saying, lo and behold, someone who was there said, but I do this. I actually do this. This is my job. I actually do this. And so you have these kinds of connections where people are finding other persons, other entrepreneurs, they could be carpenters, masons, whatever it is, who are now being able to find work in other parishes based on the fact that people are moving around and socializing and talking and asking questions. But, I saw, this house had these lovely looking fretwork and this sort of stuff. Who did it? Simple things like that. And we probably sometimes don't pay enough attention to these types of things that are happening. But it is happening, and We Gathering is bringing out all these things. Just to go back to something that was mentioned earlier when people are asking about people who are coming home. I had the pleasure of meeting a young gentleman today at the church service in St. Joseph, and he said to me, he heard about We Gathering. He lives in New York. He heard about We Gathering. He came home specifically for it, but he didn't just come home. He's 55 years. He says, I'm 55 years old. This is the first time that I've ever come to Barbados, only because I heard about this regathering. But my parents are Barbadian, my grandparents, they always talked about it. I actually came. And he says he's going home tomorrow, but he's coming back. He's coming back for crop over. And this is the effect that this initiative is having. And I just wanted to share that with our audience.
Definitely.
I think that there are a couple of things that we're going to focus on as the year rolls off. I think one, continue to ground it in communities. You would see, I think over the weekend, we had an initiative, what do you call it, a motorcade that went through St. Joseph and making sure, that we engage the entire parish.
Yes.
So that was something that you will see continue, again, because we really want to just make sure that this is not something that the Secretariat does at a very high level or just a small group of the parish organizing committee does, but that we get the communities involved, right? So you would see that effort continue in a big way to just make sure that we engage the communities. I think the second thing as well you talked about is lifting up entrepreneurship. And that is something that we will continue to make a concerted and strategic effort to do in all of the parishes. It is one of the big outcomes for Gatherin. And therefore we are committed to that and being very, again, using that same word, strategic, in terms of the way how we do it and a way how we measure it as well. So the percentage of, say, new businesses that are emerging around Gatherin and that are coming out, making sure that they're coming out from within the communities, etc. And also as well, the service providers as well that are emerging to support those again. I think one of the other areas that you would see us focus on as we go through the year is what we call our social initiatives under that umbrella of Gatherin to Uplift, which is very, very important for us. We house under that umbrella our literacy initiative that is being done through the Ministry of Education. As well, we have the National Transformation Initiative as well, NTI, that is also doing work. And we want to be able to just make sure that we put some more weight behind that. We Gatherin to Uplift. So we have that as a critical pillar. Again, I talked about how we intend to deal with some of those big social challenges that are facing us, and literacy is one of those. Getting people, even older adults, to continue to learn, to continue to, engage academically. So that is one of the initiatives that we are going to put some weight behind. And then, like I said, building out those partnerships, again, to make sure that we can have partners that can come alongside of us, particularly to address some of the critical issues of sustainability, what has happened within our environment. I was very happy to see in St. Joseph. St. Joseph is doing a pollination drive. Very different, but again, very much about addressing the concern within that community. So you would see more of that. Again, very grounded initiatives addressing key social concerns.
And at Harrison's Cave Eco Adventure Park, what do you envision will be happening between the park and the communities as the year progresses in relation to grounding Gatherin as an initiative in St. Thomas, at least?
Well, for us, I believe that we will see more persons interested in either hosting events with us or even just coming through for like our summertime, because we normally would host specials. So instead of persons thinking, it's just really for visitors, no, they will now realize, there's more, and it's also for Barbadians to enjoy. Not only Allen View persons, Welsh Mahal, you could get Sturgis, like everybody can just come through and have fun at Harrison's Cave Eco Adventure Park. It's not restrictive only to visitors. So we need to get that kind of out of the minds of Barbadians, let them know, these places are not only for visitors, it's for the wider community across Barbados.
And if I could just pick up on that, one of the things that we've not formally put it out there as part of Gathering, but someone said to me, John, I am rediscovering my island.
Yes.
And I don't think I could put it any better than that. I am rediscovering my island. So the whole idea of people visiting the various attractions and different things that people come from miles away to enjoy in Barbados is an excellent opportunity for us to have our own, if you want to call it, local tourism, where people move across the island. And like I said earlier, they're introduced not only to the things that our visitors get to do, but then there's some things that happen in these spaces that are totally local. And you probably wouldn't know about them unless you're invited with a group who goes to this particular shop for putting this sauce or whatever it could be on a particular day or whatever it is that is going on. So regathering unlocks a lot for people to learn. And one of the other things, which Minister, I think she probably was going to go there, that is happening also is that the University of the West Indies has a program within it. It's called Standpipe Stories. And this is geared towards giving people invaluable information about their parish. Who were some of the people who helped to develop it, who contributed to it? What are some of the things that happened to it, the stories that are lost when people pass on and don't pass on those stories? Our history department and our historians are bringing out these stories, and what it does, it engages with different age groups. So you're passing on information to, let's say, younger people, but you're also gaining information from older people who will challenge some of the things that they're hearing. We say, no, I remember when, or I was told it was this, or I just told it was that. And what you're doing is you're bringing different generations together in a space using storytelling, but real history to bring them together. And again, it talk about building identity. You know, when you go to St. Philip, if you heard the story of Sam Lord's Castle, that is a St. Philip thing. You know,
Not like
it,
you have
it's
any
not.
bias or anything like that, right?
So once you hear that story, you know that's the thing. Same thing with the Buster Rebellion, all these other things. And in each parish, there is a story that is unfolding as we go through the Standpipe Stories.
Well, we were just having a really good time, but our time is nearly up. And if anyone has any final words, this is your moment.
I just want to encourage Barbadians. One of the other elements is our awards that we give. We honor Barbadians. We call them unsung heroes for each parish. So it's 10 locals and 10 from the diaspora. We really want to encourage Barbadians. This is an opportunity for us to be able to recognize people who've helped build Barbados and ordinary Barbadians. So really want everybody in each parish to look out for that particular event as well, and to make sure that they nominate people within their parish.
Okay. Well, tonight we were talking about the impact of Gatherin on Barbadian communities and the economy. And in the studio for that discussion, we had Senator Shantal Munro-Knight, and we also had Miss Leah Roach from the Eco Adventure Park, Harrison's Cave Eco Adventure Park, and Senator John King, who is the director of the 2025 Gatherin Secretariat. And I want to thank all of you for joining us tonight. Thank you, viewers, for coming on board and joining in the discussions as well. Thank you for calling in, those callers who made it through to us. Thank you. I'm Stacey Russell, and that's it tonight for The People's Business. Looking forward to seeing you again next time.